Well, hello there, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Chat and Channel Session. In today's session, we are going to be discussing an all too unfamiliar to people spiritual truth, which is that spirituality does not solve everything. It was never meant to, in my opinion and experience. And I really want to deep dive on that today because, as someone who has lived intensely spiritual for this entire life, sometimes to the detriment of a lot of my physical life, I believe this is something that higher power and the guides have given me a lot of experience and authority to speak on. And there are some pitfalls or traps that I see far too many spiritual people along the way get caught up in along the spiritual path. And it does sometimes mean that we cycle in some difficult or sometimes suffering lessons here in the physical density and reality. So it is my hope and my intention that by discussing this today in our session, along with the other work that I work so hard to put out there for and to and with all of you, that we will be able to help kind of bring in a bridge or even fill in some of those potholes, if you will, along that spiritual path so that not as many of us have to struggle along the way and we can find more balance between the spiritual and the physical, or what some people refer to as the practical. Because while I do believe that as a collective we are all on an ascension journey and an awakening journey, that does happen in different waves and different levels and different times for a reason, in my belief and experience. And some of us will be innately spiritual and more esoteric. And while I do believe that is more of the way of what we like to think of as the future, there does need to be, in my experience, a transition period between that esoteric and the parts of us that are still living so much in physical dense reality. There do need to be bridges or filling in of the gaps of those experiences. And it's also one of the reasons why, as an energy healer and metaphysical teacher, I am so passionate about integrating information from science and from medicine and from neuroscience and mindfulness and different aspects, because I do believe that all of this is more alike than it is different, and feeling the need to choose or cement or ground yourself into only one particular camp of belief or experience is, in my experience, a limiting belief. And I love to be informed by both science and spirit and see the ways that we all have pieces of the puzzle. So I know that's quite a lot. Before we dive in further, let me welcome back those of you who are returning here at Chat and Channel Session. I really appreciate you. If you are new, welcome. My name is Danielle, #damsel at D's Enlightened Edits, your energy editor and informer of damseldesigns.com. That is www.damcldesigns.com. I am a lifelong spiritual and psychic medium, quantum sekhem and shamanic energy healer and divine channel, as well as metaphysical teacher, life and consciousness coach, energy artist, writer, and so much more. And this is Chat and Channel Session, where my guides, and in some cases some of you, present me with a topic and we do a stream of consciousness channeling on that topic to better aid you in your healing, mindfulness, spiritual, and ascension journeys. And of course, to help you, as we do on my website, damseldesigns.com, connect with all the dots of the divine design. If that sounds good to you, remember you can always be a follower or subscriber here at Chat and Channel Session, as well as on my other social media platforms, such as at D's Enlightened Edits on Instagram, D's Enlightened Edits on YouTube, and you can always reach me on my website, damseldesigns.com, where I offer a multitude of types of spiritual sessions, energy artworks, enlightened merch, and more, and where you will find an application form for one of my select quantum Sikhem or shamanic energy healing or life and consciousness coaching expansive spots. Those things and more will be linked in the description, or they are always all linked on my website, damseldesigns.com. And now that you know a little bit more about me and my work and where to find me, let us jump back into today's session. If you would like to participate in the chat portion here at Chat and Channel, feel free to do so by leaving comments, questions, or reviews, or my favorite way for you to participate, which is getting out a journal or the Notes app on your phone or favorite device. As I am channeling, do some stream of consciousness writing along with me so that through that medium, you can receive more of your own specific energy intuitions and insights that will be relevant to you and to the topic that we are channeling on today. And so now that we are diving back into our topic, I do want to give another personal example. As I said, I am a lifelong spiritual and psychic medium, a lifelong channeler, and an activated energy healer. And in all of that, and in going through some of the activations, and especially the initiations that it took for me to get to and through those various levels to be of service to others and to myself, I had to live innately more spiritual than physical for large portions of my life. And in order to do that, in my experience, this will not be everyone's experience, but I was severely limited by physical means during certain portions of my life and journey. And I believe that that was linked to needing to live more on the spiritual side of life and study and receive more from the astral during certain portions of life so that I can bring and bridge that information gap back here, not only into my physical body, but into more of the physical experience that I can then act as a medium for other people and for my clients all around the world. And again, that will not be everyone's experience, but those limited means did severely impact me in terms of my physical body, my health, and some injuries that I had to dealt with, and sicknesses and chronic illnesses, etc., and in terms of my financial means as well. Now, some of those were, of course, intermingled and quantumly entangled and entwined with some of my own personal limited beliefs or my ancestral personal limited beliefs and karmas and lessons, etc. But a lot of that did have to do with how much I was astral traveling to receive this information. And so I was bedridden for a large part of my life and journey, and almost constantly on the other side. And in living that experience while simultaneously living a physical body experience that ultimately needed healing and in some aspects is still being recovered from, I learned a lot and I retained and grew certain abilities to be able to do that, not only for myself, but for clients and for the collective and for the world and for different types of spiritual energies. Now, to some of you, that may sound intensely woo and esoteric, and to others of you, I feel and hear your ears going up and your sparks being lighted of, there are really cool aspects of that and of astral travel, but it did promote a lot of suffering for me, to be honest with you, here in the physical world. And that is because my experience was so innately imbalanced and it was so tilted towards the spiritual only. Now, in some of my personal lessons, I've discovered that's because the spiritual was more of a safe zone for me as a higher dimensional consciousness or someone who is more familiar with the higher dimensions of consciousness. But it's also allowed me to be able to relate with people from both sides of the spectrum, from that intensely spiritual, esoteric, high and ungrounded aspect of the spectrum, and to the very grounded aspect of physical pain and suffering, and meet in the middle as well. So I am very grateful for those experiences and for my journey. But all of that informed the lessons that I want to share and spark within you today, if you are so inclined to be here, which I'm so thankful Spirit has led you to this session today, because looking to only or constantly solve things from the spiritual spectrum was not really a healthy experience in my experience. And as someone who is lucky enough to be called upon by many different spirits and people and many different types of experiences from their perspective, I have noticed the same thing ring to be true as well. If we tend to only come at things from one angle, it can be more of an uphill battle, more of a climb, more of a difficulty to actually get the things accomplished that we know we are meant to, or that we are desiring to accomplish, to heal, to overcome, to be on mission for. And this is because there very rarely is, in this universe where all things are possible, only one way. Because of working through the quantum space and seeing through so many different realms and natures of reality, Spirit has always gifted me this perspective, and I've worked very hard to cultivate this perspective of seeing how interconnected everything is. And interconnected sometimes does complicate things because of the fact that it means that most things take a more holistic approach or point of view in order to be able to understand them, to heal them, to solve them, to integrate them, etc. Very rarely is there one point of one way, one portal, one point of awareness. This is why so much of my work for a large part of my journey has been in connecting the perspectives of why spiritual deities are so much more alike than they are different, and why so many deities throughout the world and throughout the pantheons are innately linked. And I believe everything is linked as one overall consciousness at the highest level, and then kind of bridges and tiers or trees down into different branches. But I have been blessed to see how so many of the deities are actually the same energy presenting in another form, with another name, with another face, with maybe some added or removed qualities in a different pantheon based on the experience that different people needed at the time in that area of the world, in those timelines, or even in our timelines now, which is why I love to work with multiple pantheons and multiple deities, and have never been dissuaded from doing so from higher power, because higher power is not limited, and limiting our experience to only one way is a very third density and 3D and below way of looking at things. Now, it serves a purpose up to a point in our growth, in our levels of understanding, as we are being activated, as we are expanding our consciousness's ability to understand and maintain information. But it also does limit our consciousness, limit our creator and co-creator abilities. And so understanding and taking on the ways that things are interconnected, that things are the same but presenting in other forms and facets through reality, through pantheons, through the divine mirror or the matrix, if you like, can help us to come at it from those more intertwined and enlightened points of view, so that we can come to healing within totality, with interconnectedness, rather than heal only sort of band-aid over the bullet hole aspects over and over and over again, like layers working down in an onion until we finally get to that center point. Because I see far too many people only do this and come at it one layer at a time rather than through those integrated aspects. Now, that being said, your soul is only going to let you do what it is ready to do, what it is ready to learn. This is why, as an Akashic Records reader and healer, I always give people the disclaimer that we're never going to download all of your lives or all of your Akashic record to you at once. That would be too dangerous, frankly, and it would short out your circuits. What we can do is connect you with several points of lives, if you resonate with multiple lives like myself, or several points of patterns or informations that are interconnected to your relevant experience and your readiness level now, so that you can best integrate them and then grow. And so what we can do in working more in an integrated way is utilize all or as many of the tools and points of information at our disposal and not need to limit those based on our belief that it has to be a certain way. Now, that can apply for anything, but most prominently and most recognizably within the field of topic of our session today, it will be in the ways that you can bridge the gap between more spiritual forms of work and information and practical or inspired action forms as well. Because I see far too many among us feeling the need to almost defend spirituality or be this martyr for the cause by only working something from a spiritual angle. And now that's not to say that only working certain things from a spiritual angle will not work, but most of the time when you are working from those higher levels, you will be given, or your reader or your healer will also be able to facilitate you with different aspects of inspired or practical actions or integrations as well. These can be very simple things, like something that my energy healer has done with me and something that I do in my work as well as an energy healer, which is by doing an almost EMDR-like activation with your eyes and eye rotations, etc., or certain movements or mudras even when you are doing a spiritual work, so that there is some kind of inspired physical action that is simultaneously happening along with that spiritual action to bring that into integration and manifestation here in the physical realms and realities of belief. Or it can be inspired actions like taking a step, making an investment, making a call, different things that will be relevant to you and that experience or that petition that you are making or that situation that you are seeking to heal, and integrating that spiritual belief, knowledge, download, and information with that inspired action so that you are taking a step here in the physical to allow for more of its manifestation. And I really wanted to share this today because I believe that if you take more of those inspired action steps, or if you at the very least become open to the possibility of them and start building your resilience and cultivating your ability to actually take those action steps, then more of us will become more successful in fully and holistically integrating the spiritual works and downloads that more of us are becoming so divinely privy to. Ideally, I would also love for you to do that with information and informedness, even though I know that's not a word, in terms of general mindfulness, mental health, emotional health, medical health as well, right? I always advise my energy healing clients that no energy healing work is meant to substitute or bypass any medical work or medical professional advice that needs to be done. In my experience, spiritual work helps us become open channels and open vessels to receive a higher path, which sometimes means that people receive an easier way in terms of their medical issues being healed, or maybe they're led to different doctors or led to tell their doctors to look for certain things within their bodies, that the doctors then have the medical equipment to help aid on the physical level, and they're helping and taking care of that in the physical, which you are allowing for, while you are simultaneously taking care of what you can and what you may need to on the spiritual or energetic levels, thus allowing those to intermingle and come into play for your ultimate and overall healing, in my belief and experience. And as I'm speaking and channeling on it, I'm seeing the caduceus, or that healing symbol, which is so associated with wonderful healing light beings like Archangel Raphael, Apollo, who many physicians still take an oath to Apollo, and you can see so in their Hippocratic oath, and different healers throughout the world, Thoth and Tahuti in Egypt, or Hermes. There are so many doctoral type spiritual energies that are healers that also integrate with the roots and the foundations of the purest medical system. I do believe some of the medical systems are corrupt, to be honest with you, but that's also why I believe it's so important to come at any medical or mental health issues from that holistic point of view, where you are taking care of your spirit and your physical, your spiritual side and your intuition, and your physical side and your body's needs, so that you can contribute to your own healing, and you're never seeking to codependently put the responsibility for that on another being, whether that be purely on your spirit, purely on your energy healer, or purely on your doctor. And you are taking an informative and empowered role in your healing, so that you can be an advocate for yourself or for your loved ones in the medical field, and choose treatments or request treatments in the physical and in the spiritual that are intuitively and divinely guided and most relevant for you, and so that you'll also be able to receive the full and positive results of that healing. And luckily, many of our doctors in this day and age are more spiritually, or are becoming more spiritually informed and inclined, and will be respectful of your intuition and of your beliefs, or will be willing to have a discourse with you and inform you from their point of view with medical knowledge, so that you can take that information into account along with your intuition and integrate it. And I've heard from anesthesiologists and many doctors that they do believe that their clients' mental health and mental attitude and mindfulness and faith play a large part in the healing and in whether those patients will actually heal. I've actually been lucky enough to see several newer anesthesiologists who actually work to get their client or their patient in a better mood before they put them under anesthesia, because they know that by them doing that, their body is going to accept more of the healing or more of the surgery in a more empowered way, and they will actually cooperatively integrate and work with the surgeons if they are in a better mental state before they actually go under in that anesthesia portion. And if you or someone you know is actually going into any planned surgeries, you can not only work with that from a medical perspective, always follow the advice of your medical professionals, of course, which I am not. I have to say that as a legal disclaimer, and so those of you are informed. But you can come at it from a spiritual perspective and level as well, because I do have a previous chat and channel session, which is currently available in the back catalog of chat and channel sessions, which are available in the chat and channel session podcast playlist on my YouTube channel at D's Enlightened Edits. And that session is called Understanding Soul Loss and Energy Healing to Prevent It During Surgery. And in that session, it is about an hour long, and we go over the concepts of soul loss and how sometimes parts of your soul's consciousness do separate from our usable body consciousness in order to protect us, and several other reasons that tends to happen. happened, trauma, etc., and go through an energy healing meditative practice where you can prepare your body for surgery so that that soul loss doesn't need to happen, and so that you can better integrate any healing that you need on a physical or energetic level before, during, and after any surgical procedures. So I encourage you to go back to that Chat and Channel Sessions podcast playlist on my YouTube and find that session. It originally uploaded in November of 2022, and bookmark it so that it can be relevant if you or anyone you know who is spiritually inclined and open to this type of work would like to work with that in preparation for any surgeries that you or they may be having. And so with that being said, I want to circle back before we end today's session, because I hope that through the course of this information and several of these examples, you've become more inspired with the ways that coming at things from an integrated point of view and being open to both spiritual and physical inspired actions can help bring better results to you in the world. Now, I know we've primarily focused on medical, and that's going to be relevant for some of you, but this can be with any form of integration or manifestation. This can be in terms of you manifesting or healing financial situations, or manifesting or healing relationship situations, or patterns or points of beliefs that you experience here often in the physical reality. And this can be also in integrating, for example, with relationships, not only spiritual information and perhaps diving into your soul contracts and the healing of that, but also learning about mental health aspects of relationship and codependency and different things like that, which have always informed the way that I work with and inform and heal and coach my clients, especially when I work with couples or those healing from breakups, etc. And breakups can not only be between romantic partners, but between family members or friends or other soul-related beings as well, and working those angles not only from how people may be connected from soul contracts or from karmic balancing or from past lives or soulmate relationships, but also how those things have interplayed with each of those people's beliefs and integrations and limitations surrounding things like codependency, like toxicity, like possible personality disorders or trauma triggers, etc. And all of those things have roots, in my opinion, to both spiritual information and physical mindfulness, mental health information, sometimes physical health information as well, such as being trauma informed about the nervous system. Because as a channel and an energy healer and someone who has been through a lot of trauma, I can tell you that spirit has had me learn certain practice integrations to bypass the aspects of my trauma or my nervous system on a personal level before interacting with or in someone else's field, or before doing a public channeling such as this, or a live like I do on Instagram or other platforms, or a speaking engagement, etc. So that whether that's with a group or a personal client or a channeled piece of work, I am doing so from a purely intentioned state, or as pure as possible as we can get through this reality, right? And I am doing the due diligence work to make sure that my trauma and my limited beliefs need not interfere with whatever I am channeling or seeing for the client. Now, of course, sometimes things will be informed by my trauma or by my experience, because everything is coming through a lens, and through a lens of my experience, but supplemented through the higher pure lens of perspective from the higher forms of consciousness that I consciously connect with before doing and while doing any work like this in a safe space type of way that is respectful to my energy and the energy of the clients or the energy of those of you who are inclined to listen and interact with this as a teaching or a point of information through the Akashic or quantum field, which thank you so much for the honor of allowing me to do that. That being said, please feel free always to take what resonates and leave the rest. Not every piece of information in a general channeling or even in a personal one-on-one channeling needs to be Bible or canon for you. It doesn't need to be fact for you because you are a soul sovereign being with free will and with your own experience. So if something is not resonating for you, take the parts that resonate, integrate those, and leave the rest for someone else, especially in public teachings or channeling such as this, or in books that you may be reading, etc., even if those are deemed as holy books or texts, because anything that is streaming through for the purpose of a collective will need to be more of a blanket statement so that it can reach and help as many people as possible. And that is why, especially with public information, it's important to do that practice of taking what resonates and leaving the rest. But in one-on-one information, if you are getting a reading, if you are doing a reading for yourself or receiving information, know that you always have the power through your quantum free will and conscious consent to say, thank you very much for that information, but I choose and decide and decree for that not to be true for me. Now, depending on the source, you can say that physically or in your head and through your spirit, through your heart or other means, if the person is not someone who's actually going to onboard that information or integrate it well. And for more on this, you may also want to explore another chat and channel session, which is available both on my YouTube and across the streaming platforms, as earlier this year in the time of recording, I started uploading to all streaming platforms as well, such as Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, and more. And there is a very special chat and channel session about understanding your conscious and unconscious consent. That one was about our responsibility in understanding that consent and understanding that things aren't necessarily our fault, but are our responsibility in life and manifestation. And it was originally uploaded in April of 2023, if you are looking for that one. Now, be aware when playing with your conscious and unconscious consent, certain things do have more momentum, energetically speaking, than others in terms of belief and how we are using our free will and belief and consent. So, in order to fully implement your consent or your decree or your allowance or permissions on certain things, you may need to also do a type of belief healing or energy clearing or integration so that you can upgrade the power that you are putting behind using your consent or asserting your permissions or boundaries on certain things. And when I do that type of work on myself or with a client, I do integrate information about verbal boundaries and forms of consent in the physical world as well, and integrate information on sometimes how our nervous system clamps down and our nervous system responds differently than our psychological system or our emotional system or any of these things. And it's also why I want to inform you, as someone who is obviously a channel and very connected, that sometimes if and when you are working with your own intuition and with channeling guidance for yourself, remember that you are pulling from that lens of experience that may be clouded with your traumas, with your limited beliefs on an unconscious level. And so sometimes the information streaming through to us that's telling us to do something as an inspiration, as an intuition, or even as what seems like an inspired action can be pulling more from our traumatized nervous system than it is from our intuition, or at the very least, it is flowing through that traumatized nervous system before it fully gets to integrate as divine information or inspiration within us. That is why, in my opinion, it is so important to work on your mindfulness, to work on your mental health, and to work on the spiritual side of these beliefs, of the roots of where they come from, and in clearing that so that you are a purer channel, even if you don't do this work publicly, for your own intuition, and so that you are not confusing intuition and fear on any level, because that is something that for myself, I am willing to admit I have definitely done because of being damaged in those areas, and because we often are kinder and purer for others than we are to and for ourselves if we are spiritually inclined. Most of us do put a belief of others on a higher pedestal than we do ourselves until we come into more of our own healing and self-love journeys. And for this, I know I'm giving you a lot of homework here, but I would also like to direct you to a more recent chat and channel session, which is available on all the streaming platforms and on my YouTube, entitled Are You a Comfort Keeper Empath?, which helps you determine the roots of why it may be so much easier for you to comfort, soothe, heal, or inform others than it is for you to do that for yourself. There's also another recent chat and channel session from just a couple before that, entitled Empath Heal Thyself, Why It Feels Difficult for Empaths to Self-Care. And there are former chat and channel sessions from a while back that are on the YouTube as well about the people pleaser wound and the fawn response, and so many of these things where in these previous chat and channel sessions we have deep dived to the common threads or the common roots between these belief systems that make it easier for us as spiritually inclined people to help and be pure channels or loving or comforting or soothing or healing people for others, but why that can be more difficult for the self. And one of the reasons for that, in addition to what you will hear in those chat and channel sessions, is because from within our own experience, it is always harder for us to maintain perspective compared to if we are seeing something from outside our experience. If we are using our divine gifts and our spirit to see something that is not innately entangled within us. In other words, if we are looking at someone else, we can see them a lot more clearly, obviously, than we can see ourselves. In order to see ourselves, we need to implement certain tools to do that, such as a mirror, right? Whereas you can see someone else from the outside in a different way than they can see themselves or their experience or what is happening to them or their appearance even. And this is why we can bypass a lot of our issues or a lot of our traumas, etc., because we also have access to that purer perspective from outside the emotions or the entanglement of that experience when we are helping or informing someone else. And so a lot of the spiritual journey, in my experience, is about being able to learn and appreciate those abilities and the way that we are there for others, but then also learn the ways that that can feel imbalanced when we are only doing that for others, and the ways that that imbalance can form resentment or the breaking down of certain relationships, in order to get us to turn back inward and see how we are the common denominator and see how we can turn our perspective back within on ourselves so that we can do things like heal those integration systems, that nervous system, that channeling ability to reach and connect with higher self, so that we can have more of the perspective, more of the pure intuition in going forward in navigating our own lives. Now, that being said, it can still be difficult, no matter how much you commit to and do this, to maintain perspective on yourself in certain things. Self-awareness does grow along with your self-love, But there are certain lessons, certain healings, certain integrations that are most beneficial when you can also accept, ask for, and allow the help and perspective from someone or something outside of yourself in a pure way. This can be higher power or a healer or a coach like myself that can help you create and ground and maintain safe and sacred space and perspective while you are healing certain things or ascending through different aspects of your journey. So if you are called to work through things like that on very deep and very high esoteric levels and in an integrative way, you can do so with my spiritual help and support by using the link that's in the description or the application form that's linked on my website, www.damseldesigns, that's DAMCLdesigns.com, for energy healing and life and consciousness coaching, and we can connect and talk and see where you are on a spiritual level so that we can build you a custom package to fit your soul's needs at this time and in the directions that you most want and need to go in. If you are feeling like you need some perspective at this time rather than perspective and integrative coaching or energy healing, you may also be interested in the spiritual reading sessions that I offer and that are available to everyone on my website, damseldesigns.com. Those are things like quantum reading sessions where we work through the quantum space to connect you with your higher self, your spirit guides, and even loved ones in spirit to get you the answers that your soul most needs at that time. Those are also sessions such as Akashic Records reading sessions, where we open your Akashic record and connect you with information from your most relevant past lives or life patterns. You don't necessarily have to be a believer in past lives to benefit from Akashic Records work, because as an Akashic Records reader and someone who is very in-depth with past life work and information integration, I also love to work with the ways that patterns repeat themselves in our childhood and do a lot of inner child work and points of information with my clients as well. So pulling from information of your past patterns need not be from more than this lifetime to be informative and helpful to you. And that goes for whether we're getting that information for you in a reading session or going the step further and getting the information for and with you and then doing the healing work and integrating it with you as an energy healing or life and consciousness coaching client. There are other types of spiritual sessions and mini readings for fast answers and quick support available at this time on my website, Damsel Designs, as well. And I encourage you to also follow me on Instagram at These Enlightened Edits for soothing and spiritual content that's good for your nervous system and your soul on a daily basis, and sometimes going live on there as well. Remember, you can find me at These Enlightened Edits and linked all the places in the description and on my website, damseldesigns.com. And so with that being said, and that invitation being extended to those of you who are ready to step up with spiritual support in more information and integration, I want to wrap up today's chat and channel session by encouraging you to follow the divine inspiration wherever it is taking you. Perhaps it is taking you in a direction to see that no matter how wonderfully and spiritually connected you are, it is always beneficial to be willing to accept the balance of help as well, whatever that means for you. This is a hard lesson that I had to learn, and honestly am still integrating some of the levels of, as someone who has always been the helper and the primary support for others. And if you are one of those people too, it can be difficult if we're always the caretaker, always the informed one, always the responsible, mature one, right? To integrate asking and allowing for help and support for us as well. And when we finally do attract and receive those teachers or those friends or those healers or those relationships that do want to be supportive and and respectful of us as well in a balanced way, sometimes then our nervous system or our soul can be so uncomfortable and say, hey, wait a minute, this is different than we've experienced really ever before. I don't know that this is good. And we can get mixed messages in terms of our intuition because it is just not a comfortable space for us. It is not something that we are used to. And our ego and our nervous system will categorize things as safe, even if on a logical level we know that they are dangerous, or on a spiritual or emotional level we know that we don't agree with them, such as situations of physical danger or abuse. If we have lived in abusive situations or disrespectful situations long enough, our ego and our nervous system says, well, we've survived them before, so they are innately safe. They become a comfort zone, even if we are standing in the middle of a field of razor blades or a circle of fire, right? And logically we know, hey, those things aren't safe. Those things are uncomfortable. I don't like being here. Our nervous system or our ego may categorize that as safe simply because it is so relevant to experiences that we have deemed as safe before, simply because we've survived them. So if you grew up with a lot of imbalance, with a lot of trauma, with a lot of upheaval or instability, then those zones of instability will be more comfort zones for you. And you will deem them as safe and comfortable, even if you consciously resent them or disagree with them or want to choose different. And so this is where healing from a more integrative perspective and a holistic point of view can help you to navigate those transition periods between what you've known as safe but no longer resonate with, agree with, or want to choose, and what you consciously want to choose as a new safe zone, space, point of stability, luxury, positive, balanced relationship, whatever it is for you, right? And so you can integrate and support your body and your nervous system and your mindfulness and mental health while simultaneously supporting and crafting and creating through the spirit and sacred space and spiritual healing and manifesting techniques and all of those things, right? And then you can bridge the gap to transition or quantum leap or ground into those experiences. And eventually those with the receive of results will become more comfortable to you, will become more of your new normal. And so your body or your spirit or your limited beliefs will not have to resist them so much, and you can better integrate them for your continued healing, ascension, manifestation, or advancement. So I am actually going to close our session for today here, beautiful soul, because that felt like a lot of download for some of you. I encourage you, if you can, go and do some journaling now if you haven't been doing it already. You don't have to be in a private space necessarily to do that stream of consciousness writing. If you are out and about, even jotting down some notes that have come through to you, some insights and inspirations, get out that notes app in your phone and take some notes of what's relevant. That can be helpful. And then I encourage you, come back to this and listen again whenever you feel called, and do stream of consciousness writing while you are listening in a safe space, in a grounded and private space, and see what else comes through to and for you in that fuller listening capacity. Many of you tell me you listen to these sessions several times, and something that I'm very passionate about doing with my reading and healing clients is recording sessions for you, because I love that all of my sessions come with recordings now, including for my healing and coaching clients, so that you can go back and listen to the quantum levels and quantum lessons anytime you feel called, and integrate the new layers of those lessons again as you are ready to in subsequent listenings. And I love hearing back from some of you, sometimes years after a session was recorded, and how something is newly relevant for you. Because I channel from the quantum space, spirit prioritizes all of that and prioritizes the messages and knows how they'll stream through for you in different layers and levels and lessons. So I'm so happy that the work can act like that and continue to expand for you. But as always, like we were talking about, take what resonates and leave the rest. If you have enjoyed this session today or aspects of it, I encourage you to please like it or review the podcast. That would really help me out and help the algorithm algorithm to know more of what you like, to recommend better content to you, as well as recommend this out to many more people who will benefit from it as well. So thank you to those of you who do that. You know where to find me if you would like to work together with spiritual reading and or healing support. If you would like to help support Chat and Channel Session and my free and public works such as this, you can do so several ways: by using that contact form linked in the description to become a sponsor, or by becoming a low-cost paid monthly Spotify subscriber, and also through all amounts appreciated energy exchange and donations through www.paypal.me/DSEnlightenedEdits. All of those ways are linked in the description, and I hope that you will also explore and be or become a subscriber or a follower to Chat and Channel Session and my various social medias across the platforms and streaming services. I am so grateful that you've been here and shared this time and space with me today, and I hope to see you next time. Be blessed. With love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle. #damsel at DSEnlightenedEdits of damseldesigns.com.